Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will start our third lecture in this Internet Forum public lecture series here in Aalto University. Most welcome you in this lecture hall and all you who are following this lecture in the internet. Actually, we are having very interesting topic today and next time. Next Tuesday we will talk about the big data, but today we will talk about MyData. Or let's put it a little bit other way. We will talk here today about your data. How your data is being collected in today's society. What is the privacy in it? How you can actually control your own data, which is already out there somewhere, a huge amount of it. I have great honor to have two excellent lecturers here this evening. First, Eija Warma will start, and Eija comes from the Castrén and Snellman. And then Antti Poikola will continue, and Antti comes from MyData Alliance. And as always, after lectures, hopefully there will be plenty of good questions to the lecturers. So, without further words, please, Eija, we will start with privacy, a success factor or not. Let's put it that way.
Well, good evening or good afternoon, everyone, and first of all, thank you for the great invitation to talk about privacy and whether it's a success factor or not. By an education, I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney, I work in a law firm, and most of the time that I spend awake and sometimes when I sleep, I work and think in privacy. I think about rules, I think about how the rules are applied in practical cases with the clients. And I think that none of you works and deals and thinks more privacy than I. And I hope I can bring you some thoughts and ideas from lawyers and from the legal framework. What does privacy mean and what should legislator do on the rules? This lecture or the series of lectures, I believe we started a new chapter today, which continues next week as well. And the topic for the chapter is importance of information in digitalization. And my question is whether any business today can claim that they wouldn't be working on data and a data or information wouldn't be one of their key drivers in their business. I think information is everybody's business and everyone should know the main rules, how the legislator controls data. The question I've put as a title on title of my presentation, privacy, whether it's a success factor or not, I think the answer depends on who you ask. Privacy can enhance business, and privacy can prevent business and organizations from doing things. Those people who know me, they know that I want to always think positive. So my answer to this question would be that privacy is definitely a success factor and privacy enhances business. I welcome all the opposing comments and opinions, of course, and we can talk after the presentation more if you think so. And right now the concept of privacy and rules controlling and building the framework on how data has to be processed and controlled is under a huge change. We have a current laws in Finland. We've had the laws in place since late 1980s. But right now we are facing a new set of rules that will set a framework to the whole European Union. And there are a couple of drivers that are behind that huge change, that EU legislator thought that current rules are not good enough and something has to be changed. First of all, the existing laws, the legal framework is from the middle 90s. The directive was enacted in 1995, and of course the work for the directive was done early 90s. And even me, who is not a technical expert in any way, I know that the world through the technical lenses, early 90s was completely different compared to today. So the capabilities of technology, capability of devices, the amount of data that can be collected very fast and analyzed and processed very cheap was not there at the time when the current laws were enacted. And also, the other driver for the change is probably not lack of sanctions, because we do have sanctions. Non-compliance with the privacy laws in Finland is a crime. So yes, you can go into prison if you do things very, very wrong. But maybe it's a ignorance from those ones who collect data and process data. They don't know how it should be done, and maybe sometimes the authorities, they don't have enough resources to monitor, to follow everyone's activities, and that's why a lot of data collectors and processors think that they can kind of dismiss the requirements and not know what they are supposed to know. So there's maybe a stick, you can call it, a stick from the legislator to hit to the fingers to those ones who do not comply the laws is the other driver with the European legislator that was driving this change for the new legal framework. And if we still talk a bit about law, there is plenty of different laws in those green law books that we have in Finland. But if we look at the data and personal data especially, it's exactly the same set of rules that applies to everyone. So if you are online business maker, or if you are a school, or if you are healthcare service provider or government, you have to comply with the same set of rules. And that makes the privacy laws quite fascinating, because they appear very differently, depends on who is applying them, even if the principles and requirements are exactly the same. And I think that is one spark to my daily work, that see how the principles and rules work differently in different organizations. If we go further back to history, we are now facing a new change, but if we really go back to the roots on privacy, you have to go to, or cross the Atlantic and go to the US. And 1890, there was an article published in Harvard Law Review that introduced this concept, right to be let alone. It was two gentlemen, Mr. Samuel Warren, who was a lawyer from Boston, and then Mr. Louis Brandeis, who was also an attorney, but he also worked as an associate justice on the Supreme Court in the United States before he settled in Boston and founded a law firm. So these two gentlemen wrote an article that has been described to be one of the most influential essays in the history of American law, and sort of a root and origin of concept of privacy. And of course it wasn't maybe a personal data as we understand the concept today that was a driver for the article, but it was a more inspiration to the article was coverage of intimate personal lives in a society columns of newspapers that drove these gentlemen to think that what is really a hardcore meaning on privacy, and they came to the solution that all of us have a right to be let alone at some point. Then there is another gentleman from the US, a law professor, also Professor Alan Westin from Columbia University. And he did a research and wrote a lot about concept of privacy as well in late 60s and early 70s. He has published 2 books. The first one was Privacy and Freedom from 1967, and the second one was the Data Banks in a Free Society from 1972. And in those books, and at the time when he did a research, his topic was problems on consumer data privacy and data protection. And as sort of an outcome of this research, he introduced this concept of informational self-determination. He thought that all of us, all the individuals whose data is out there in one format or another, we should have, or we should be able to determine when and how and to what extent our information can be communicated to other parties. So someone can collect the data if there is a legal basis in the law, but we should be able to control to whom the data can be given and communicated in other occasions. So we control the usage of data, not necessarily the collection of the data. And I've spent quite some time thinking of concept of right to be let alone and this informational self-determination. And I've come to the conclusion that these are actually a key drivers and main concepts also in the European approach on privacy and data protection laws. Even if the origin of both of these articles are in the United States, but still the European way of thinking is very much similar to these 2 outcomes. If we look at the sort of first global set of rules that somehow regulated privacy and data protection, we have to go to 1980s when OECD published a global guidelines on companies and different organizations to guide how personal data can be collected and what can be done with the data. We had a couple of countries before that, for example, Germany and Sweden, who had local laws already in place, but it wasn't that many of those countries. But this set of rules has been like an origin of a global standard, or should I say a European standard on data protection and privacy rules, and ever since a lot of countries have enacted their own set of rules in this field. I apologize from non-Finnish speakers, but here is articles from a couple of weeks back from Kauppalehti. Kauppalehti is a daily newspaper on business news. And this article, or the head title, says that all companies benefit from location data. And maybe the article itself is not that important in this context, but it's just an example on privacy news, privacy as a topic that you can see on a newspaper and different media, at least on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. And the news are, of course, very different. They are very positive, or can be, as this news, or they can be quite negative, and typically the news that has a negative context is about data breaches. And the amount of data breaches is increasing, and I can also see that on my desk at the office, that there are a lot of different type and kind of data breaches out there, and lawyers and police and courts' help is needed for that. But the thing I want to point out from the article again, it's a rather small print, highlighted in yellow, but it's a commentary from a journalist who wrote the article, the positive article on usage of location data. And what the journalist is looking after and sort of throwing out the challenge is that companies should be more open. Whoever collects personal data, they should be more open, they should be more transparent on their activities. And the key question is why? Why should that be done? My answer to that is that earning the users, earning the customers, earning the employees, whoever individual is in question, earning their trust. Because by earning the trust, you can build the business, you can build the data processing activities. And I guess that's typically missing when privacy or data protection cannot be seen as a success factor or enabler. But we get back to that topic a bit later on. Next, I'm gonna show you a video. A video is a sort of a candid camera. It's made by a Danish consumer council. It was published a couple of years ago. And you can find it from YouTube if you wanna look it again or someone else wants to look it up. And the video is spoken in Danish, so those of you like myself who don't speak Danish, don't worry. I'm sure you will get the point. What's sort of the message that the video wants to send. But think of before we go to the video, I want you to think how much you use different online services on a daily basis. How much you give your data to different questionnaires, to different apps, to different data collectors and data processors, and you don't even think, why would anyone ask me that question? For what purposes do they need that information? And I think it's quite funny that we act very differently online compared to this real life where we are right now in this room. And think about your data usage or data giving activities while you are looking at the video and see if you can think that you could be one of the stars in a candid camera. But let's see.
Så skal jeg lige bede om de sidste 5 sms'er, du har sendt.
Hvad for noget? Mit telefonnummer? Nej, hvad skal jeg? Så vil jeg også have dit. Det skal I ikke.
Nej.
Nej, på min liste. Nej, jeg vil ikke have.
Jeg sendte det til min søster.
Ja, hvad er søsterens nummer?
Jeg vil da ikke udgive hendes telefonnummer til nogen. Det lover jeg dig, jeg ikke vil. Jeg udleverer ikke nogens uden tilladelse.
Så skal jeg lige høre, hvor du var i går kl. 8.
Så var jeg hjemme hos mine forældre.
Har du deres telefonnummer samtidig?
Ja, det får du heller ikke.
Hej, jeg går bare lige med jer.
Nå, okay.
Bare se, hvor I skal hen.
Nå, okay. Det er lidt mærkeligt, det her. Nå, men vi skal derover.
Ja, så er vi bare det. 13 kroner, og så skal jeg lige bede om dit telefonnummer.
Hvorfor det?
Jamen, det er helt standard herinde, for at give dig en bedre service.
Det har jeg ikke lyst til at give.
Så skal jeg bede om din e-mailadresse i stedet for.
Det har jeg heller ikke lyst til at give. Jeg vil bare gerne have en bolle, og så smut.
Jeg skal bare lige høre, hvor du var henne i går kl. 8.
So that was a local cafeteria. A lady at the desk was asking about phone numbers, was asking where one of the customers was last night at 8 o'clock. Lady was asking to who. Okay, more advertisement, thank you. So a lot of questions were asked, and the reaction was quite different than how do we react when those same questions are asked online along with apps that we download on our phones or iPads or tablets or whatever. I think my highlight, or I think what the best part on the video was when the lady was opening the door and following the other lady outside and acting as a cookie. So I think that illustrates all of us that we don't ask questions, we don't ask grounds on different purposes, we don't say no to certain things, even if we have the control. We have the control either use the app or service or not, and we can control for what purposes we want our data to be used. But we are oftentimes quite lazy to ask questions. It's a lot of trouble. When do we get the answer? So I think there is a little bit on all of us to blame if these data processing activities are not always something that we would like them to be. I brought here a little bit of statistics. So the European Commission conducts a survey and a research every 5 years. And it's called Eurobarometer. And it was done last time in June last year. And it's a huge, huge research, like 300 pages or something. And there are a lot of topics included into the research. But data protection and privacy is one of the topics. And it's a questions asked from individuals in different EU member states. And it's quite interesting, actually, the outcome, and if you want to make a conclusions out of the individuals' answers. So if we think about the sort of a digitalization and online world today, 7 out of 10 people think that providing personal information is a part of a modern life. We agree on that. We know that, yes, we have to give our data to someone. And we are actually, I think, in the end of the day, quite okay with that. Well then, I apologize for a small print, but I explain you the numbers and colors. So then, the next question was like, who do we trust? A different organization that are collecting our data. Who are the most trustworthy parties? On the top, the most trusted one is a healthcare and medical institutions, followed by national public authorities, tax authorities, social security authorities, and so on. Then the third one is banks, financial institutions, and the fourth one is European institutions. And then we go down on the list, and the 3 last ones, I would say, are the private business. Different kind of shops and stores, mobile phone companies, online businesses. Our trust is least on those companies. And if we think who is collecting most of the data you are giving out there on a daily basis on these apps and questionnaires, is most likely the very least trusted companies on this survey. Let's move forward. Then if we have a closer look at Finland, there is a line of numbers. It's exactly the sort of a same institution and same question, so who do we trust? But on these numbers you'll see the difference compared to the previous research in 2010. And the trust on the banks, on the government, on healthcare sector has increased a little bit, 2%, 5%. But if you look at the private sector, shops, stores, mobile phone companies, online business, all of them have lost the trust they had 5 years ago. Shops and stores, more than 10%. And I think these are quite awful numbers, should I say. Then the last statistics on this presentation. What are we wanting from the companies? So what do we think when authorities and companies are collecting our data and they are telling us some purposes for what our data is used? And it's like 70% of us are very concerned that data, our data that we have given them, is used also for other purposes than what they tell us at the time when they are collecting the data. And still, I think we don't ask the right questions on at the time when the data is asked. Then where are we heading? I said that new set of rules is coming. It will be applicable law. The law is already there. The law was enacted in April this year. But now we have a 2 years grace period and it's applicable law, or we need to comply with the law in May 2018. And the question is, what will change? Will this law in the end of the day change anything? And I guess the answer is depends on who you ask. My answer is it doesn't change that much if we look at the hardcore data collection and processing activities. So who is collecting your data, how the registers need to be built in, for what purposes data can be used. All of that will remain more or less the same. Then what will change is a requirement on transparency. So the data collectors need to be more open, more clear on their activities, and they need to tell us more for what our data is used. Different kind of risk analysis need to be made. Also data breaches, whenever they occur, we need to be informed. Also the authority needs to be informed. So at least we know when something bad might happen to our data. And then data collectors and processors need to appoint an officer, a data protection officer, who is sort of the internal authority, internal source of information, who can guide the company or data collector to the right way and make sure that legal requirements are followed along the way. And also the new law gives us as consumers, as users, as individuals, more right to control what is done with our data. Do we want to be profiled or not? Do we want to be target of marketing or not? And so on. So the whole data collection and processing activities should be transparent. Online services should be used as much as possible, and we are really the control holders in the end of the day. That is the idea, a big picture behind the new set of rules. And then what is a cost of compliance? The new regulation says that if you do not follow the rules, if you do not comply, authority can come with the stick and hit to your fingers, and after that send you a nice letter with the payment details, and the amounts can be as high as 20 million euros or 4% out of the companies or group companies' global revenue. So we are talking about big bucks. This is one driver, of course, that nobody wants to be a target of a sanction and a fine in the end of the day. But still we are talking about money. I would say that the driver why to comply should be either on a reputational risk. We've seen several news. I'm not going to mention any companies, but if you have read newspapers during the last months, there has been a different kind of publicity for different companies on their data collection and processing activities. So reputation is a big driver for compliance. But even bigger than that, and bigger than any amount of money, I think the worst scenario that can happen if you do not comply is a loss of the customer's trust. Once it's lost, the customer or the user is gone, and earning that trust back again is sometimes impossible. So why to comply, why to think privacy is not that only that we avoid the heavy sanctions, but it should be that we don't want to lose the customer who is using our services. Another report. IAPP is an International Association of Privacy Professionals. It's a US-originated organization, and they have expanded and are now present around the globe. They conduct a privacy governance research and make a report together with Ernst & Young every year, and they ask different questions on privacy professionals and how they see that this profession and the whole field of privacy and the business of privacy is changing. And this year, I mean, there was of course a lot of talk about this new set of regulation and how that changed the need of professionals. By the way, if there are students in the room and you think what you want to do later on and what would be the field where the work and position is almost guaranteed, so privacy is one good field to focus, and especially a combination of technical understanding and legal understanding would be a big hit. So if you allow me to publish a little bit or give you some ideas of your future career planning, that was the advertisement part. So a lot of need of expert is needed, a bigger budget are needed for companies that they can comply. But a question, why should anyone comply? What is the driver? And here are numbers. If you look at the numbers, 99% think that privacy is important because of compliance reasons. The law says that we have to do something, that's why we are doing it. And for my personal great sadness, the numbers to meet the consumer's expectations and enhance brand and trust are only a bit more than 70%. So I would personally like to see those numbers growing, and of course compliance from the legal point of view is something that has to be done, but I think more beneficial and more important is really the trust and clients and consumer expectation. A Canadian Information and Privacy Commissioner, Anne Kovokian, has said many great things. Here is one of them. So privacy has historically been viewed as an impediment to innovation and progress. But it's so last season, as you know. So without the user's trust, technology can't move forward. So again, the key word, what I believe, is a trust. So earning the trust is a key to good business, is a key to technological development and a future success. And on my daily work, I hear a lot that privacy prevents us from doing things. Privacy laws are so complicated that we don't understand them, or if we do, they don't make possible to use data for this purpose and that purpose. And my response to them typically is that, yeah, that's your opinion, but I think it's wrong. I tend to think that privacy does not prevent cool things from happening. And this is a friend of mine, a great privacy professional, Tomi Mikkonen. And the idea behind this phrase is that if you build the IT systems, the framework that processes data in a correct way, I believe that the quality of data is better than what most data collectors have today. And the different purposes for which they are using the data is more spread. So if you build the system in a right way from the beginning, privacy laws especially would not prevent you, maybe it's wrong to say doing anything, but would not prevent you doing from most of the things. So I hope that you take a positive message from here, that privacy is a great thing, privacy is a happy thing, privacy enables things instead of prevents things from happening. And yeah, that was what I wanted to share with you today. So if you have any questions or comments, I would be happy to try to answer and try to argue against. So please, the floor is yours. Silence, it means that you all agree.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Eija. Excellent presentation, as always. One simple question, actually a question what we have been thinking here many times when we have been talking about the future, about the technology, about the privacy. How you define in easy way, what is digital privacy anyway?
Very easy and simple question, as always, from you, Jarno. Yes, privacy, there are kind of different terms and concepts that are oftentimes messed and confusing when talking about privacy. Maybe privacy is more like a feeling that we have. Something I personally or you personally think something, some data, some information, some happening is more private than something else. So it's not something in a way that legislator can really regulate and tell. Of course, in some cases, a line has to be drawn, but its privacy as such is more like a personal feeling instead of like a legal term. Whereas where the legal framework comes to the picture is a concept and definition of personal data. And there is a clear definition. So any piece of information, what is stored on any kind of it can be a piece of paper or video or voice recording or IT system, but a piece of information is stored somewhere. And not any kind of information, but the type of information that one of us is identifiable. So any information, and on the basis of that, if someone can be identified, is personal data, and then sort of a target of the set of rules. And again, the legislator would not say that anyone couldn't collect the data. It sets sort of a strict rules how the data can be collected and can be used in order to protect sort of the higher right, that is that concept of privacy that we kind of define around us. And that's, like I said, a personal view. So personal data and privacy are a little bit kind of two things, one of them defined more carefully than the other one, but still closely related to one another.
Excellent. One other issue I have to ask you, and this may not be so simple, because I think it's something what we face more or less on a daily basis, every one of us who is using these different smart devices. For example, if I download the new Pokemon Go app to my smartphone, and then I, of course, in order to play that game, I have to accept the terms. Yes. And if I read the terms, which have tens of pages, legal text, I can't understand what I am actually giving to the company who is letting me to play freely, for free, in a way, this game. Do you think that this is fair, that we have to accept these terms, which are tens of pages, which we can't not even understand what it means.
Okay, well, not really commenting on Pokemons or any other games or companies' terms as such, but of course, I mean, in order to give a valid consent that has a legal effect, would require that a person understands what the consent is given for. So that's sort of one thing that you can always question whether the consent itself is valid if you or whoever hasn't really understood the concept as such. And this is something where the EU legislator is trying to, or what is trying to be changed along the new regulation. So information given in a format of terms or just telling how the app or service works should be understandable for everyone.
That's good.
But then I would like to raise another point in that, like where you set the objective level of understanding. And I think that's a tricky and challenging question, because even if I don't understand much technology, I know what cookies are and how they work. But if I talk about cookies to my mom, and apologies mom that I'm again using you as an example, she would understand cookies to be something that she can eat and which has nothing to do with online business or internet or whatever. So kind of like how you set the objective, understandable level on documents globally, on every different type of user is a really challenge for app creators and service providers, which is going to be interesting to see how they solve that.
Excellent.
But there were a couple of
Good.
hands.
We have many questions here. I will start with you, and please talk to Mike so we will get the voice to the internet also.
Thank you. A question related to the cookies and the video, partly at least. I think, or maybe as a lawyer it might be controversial for you to think the other way around. I think that we are a bit heading down the way where we have very complex rules that we have to accept by Pokemon or whoever. And now we are trying to create very complex legal frameworks and laws to help people. But we're heading down a way where, or maybe a question is that, are we heading down a way where we are creating both too complex laws and too complex requirements so that nobody understands either one of them? Would the other way around be to educate us? I don't know if educate is the right, correct way of saying, but educate people to understand how technology works and why we need laws. I think the bakery video you showed was an excellent example of, in layman's terms, trying to explain to anyone, my mom as well, you know, what is a cookie, how does it work, so that we understand that when we press I accept button, we know roughly what happens. Would that be a better way, sort of turning the coin around, flipping the coin around so that we educate ourselves and people understand how things work and we know that we press OK, I accept, what does it mean?
Great question and great comment. I fully agree with you that it's not only a law, it's not the legislator's job in a way to make sure that privacy is achieved, but it should be also that we are more aware of technical capabilities. We know law a little bit as a layman should know. So definitely I think that a level of awareness should be raised quite a lot what comes to the terms of different online services and internet as such. There are plenty of different topics on that. But to comment on the other point that you made, whether the new set of rules only makes things more complicated, I hope not. I honestly believe that the new set of rules forces companies or organizations who collect data to know what they are doing. And I hate to say this, but kind of a level of awareness and understanding on a lot of organizations who collect data is very low. They don't know what data they have in their systems. They don't know where the data is. They don't actually know what they are doing with that data. It's there, it's always been there. So I want to believe that the new set of rules kind of forces data collectors to know what they are doing and then delete and get rid of the data they don't need and make some sort of a game plan and data flow plan on their existing and current activities. So I hope it also raises awareness among the data collectors and data processors and not only make things more complicated. But I guess that remains to be seen how it will happen in the coming years.
Hi. Coming a little bit more in another direction, we are talking about cookies, about how people collect data, and etc. My question is more that since I want to put one example that tries to explain, like imagine that you have a desert and then there is an oasis with water. And the a desert, and there is an oasis with water, you know, a land without
oasis,
water.
Yeah.
And this is from us, and also the oasis. And then you give permission or you give some power to a company to control the oasis. And then you go there and you want water. And the company tells you, yeah, I have to cut your arm. You have a free choice, of course, to say no, but you need the water. So what happened with airports and other situations where basically it's built by the community, and then a company has the right to have a Wi-Fi, and then they push you to give the data. This is one example, but I can imagine another more examples. And sometimes we don't have competition. I mean that there are not companies who give you different options. How this is treated from the legal point of view, I mean, I don't see that we have election, there is a monopoly. I don't know if I have explained myself.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I have to say that as a part of the preparedness for this new regulation, there was a discussion going on whether the new set of rules should only apply on private companies, and the public sector would have left out. Whereas I think that private sector or private organizations are really well, there is a competition. I mean, we as a users and consumers can always vote with our feet and walk away. We don't use your services if we don't trust you. Whereas like the governmental and public organizations, I mean, we don't have a choice whether we need to pay taxes or not. We do. And they don't ask our permission to get our income information and do their calculation, and then in the end of the year we get some sort of a letter. So what comes to the laws itself, I mean, it's a really same set of laws and rules that apply to everyone. So the tax authority has to comply exactly the same set of rules as online service providers or mobile phone companies. But I think it's more important to regulate the public sector where we don't have a possibility to choose compared to a private sector where we can choose, and we should choose more often if we don't trust the service provider, what they do with our data. But there we have a choice to make.
Sakari Ahvenäinen, I have a comment about this openness. You asked business to be more open, right?
Yes.
Yes, and we think that it's our time, this openness. Well, maybe not, because very big information technological changes that have happened in human evolution are language, writing, printing press, and this global computer technology that we have now here, internet for instance. Well, they have all been more open. So it's not just our time, this requirement for open, it's a long development.
That's a good comment, and thank you for that. And maybe I could specify a bit openness. I mean, I fully agree what you said, but with the openness, maybe I mean more like transparency and individuals' control on individuals' own data. So that I would know if someone who has my data, what they are doing, and I could control that more easily.
But not critic.
Yeah. No, it was a good comment. Yes.
This is. We will take two questions in a row. You and then we will continue.
Just one comment about the free choice. So, for example, if you use something like instant messaging or other communication platforms like Facebook, it is not necessarily you who makes the choice, but your friends and the people you are communicating with. And when it comes to privacy, the situation, when you, for example, compare Facebook and email, it is dramatically different. So was there any discussion on the privacy of communications with the new platforms?
I'm Simo Salo. As a user and of digital services, I often have to accept rules, as we have heard here. Can I set up my own rules? For example, put on a t-shirt with the text that if you take a picture of me, you owe me $500. And whenever I see that picture somewhere, I can go and collect.
Well, thank you for both comments, and first of all, the communication part. I mean, the new set of rules specifically focuses on personal data and registers, and a separate set of rules sort of regulates communication and confidentiality on that. So it wasn't sort of a direct target on the new set of rules, but there, of course, confidentiality is a key driver in communication. But always when using services, we read terms and we agree certain terms, and that's where sort of the consent plays a role, which is a good leeway to the next question. I think we all need to have a new t-shirts. Whether you could send invoices on the basis of t-shirt, maybe it's a bit challenging. There is a recent court decision from the Supreme Court of Finland that was about like this private parking companies and these signs. If you park here, you agree on the terms, and then you get a ticket from this private company. So maybe we can continue a discussion along that case, and it has similarities maybe on these t-shirt invoices, but very interesting idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eija. And I think we will continue with that topic, how you can control your own data, with the next speaker, who is Antti Poikola. Actually, Antti was one of the organizers with this MyData conference, which was organized and carried out just a while ago. Please, Antti, floor is yours, and if you can just few words tell about how that MyData conference went.
Yes, can you hear me? I prefer using this mic because I have spent some time in Mexico and Spain, and I learned to use my hands, so I don't want to be tied. So thank you for the introduction, and I'm really happy to be here. Happy to see many faces here and probably there in the internet as well. So I should stay here so that the camera can see me. Yes, I'm a researcher from Helsinki Institute for Information Technology, and as Jarno said, we organized a big conference here in Helsinki just a month ago. It was called MyData 2016, and it gathered something like 700 people to discuss exactly those issues that we are discussing right now here. And there is an international movement definitely going. There is this big idea that, oh yeah, there is lots of data about me in all over the places. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. And there are the guardians of the oasis that try to keep the data, gather it, and they give the rules how you get some benefits, maybe free services, free Google, free Facebook, but it's not really free. It's you pay with your data, and that's the current system. But many people and organizations around the world believe that future might be different. It might be so that we as individuals have more power in this game. And that's the big idea. Easy to say, easy to put on PowerPoint slides, but not maybe so easy to put in reality. And I'm going to tell you a little story based on our research. And you can see here on the slide there is this white paper, MyData white paper that was published by the Ministry of Transportation and Communications here in Finland. And my presentation is based on that. My slides you can see online, and all the links are clickable there. And I'm happy also to answer questions in between if you have something urgent in mind, or then just after the presentations. But let me start with something here. This is my personal data. This I asked from my mobile phone operator. There is a law that mobile phone operators have to give you the location data that you have, where you have used your phone, and as I use my data, otherwise it collects the data all when I call or SMS or use my mobile data. So these are the data points from last 6 months. And I had the fight over in email with my mobile operator that, yes, could I have it in digital format? No, you can't. You have to pay 10 euros as part of your mobile phone bill, then you get the data because it's expensive for us to reproduce, and they did the work of printing me out these maybe 100 pages of locations. I gave this to one colleague who didn't know about me much, and she started to look this, you must be some sort of hipsters from Punavuori because you hang around in that area. Weren't you supposed to be working in Aalto University? You are hardly ever there in Otaniemi, and that kind of stuff you can get out from the personal data. So that's as an introduction. It was very good intro what Eija told about the rights and regulations, but it doesn't help much if we have the right to get our data if it's in this format. And my story, the big idea, is that basically why do we push the yes I agree button in Pokemon? It's because we want to play Pokemon, right? So we don't make the choices based on whether how many pages of text there is about the rules and regulations what somebody else has put, and we don't mind so much. We might be like nervous a little bit that we know that something it's not quite okay. Everybody complains that Facebook is bad and Google is bad, and I'm using those. I'm complaining it. So there is fundamentally something wrong in that, and we cannot really fix it by, okay, it's good if we get education. That kind of videos are great. People get more aware, and maybe there comes a little bit more of the kind of push against the companies, and the regulation gets tighter. But really, I believe that the shift must be there, that people get benefits out of their own data. Nowadays, the data protection, it's like protecting some weaker party. We are the small people, and those are the big companies. So the regulators, the government, they need to protect the small and the weak against the big and the powerful, the oasis guardian, as you said. Okay, this is one way of thinking it, that let's protect the weak. And to gain maybe the same outcome would be, let's make the weaker more powerful. So let's balance the power between companies and individuals. So we need less protection if we have more power. So that's the big idea behind MyData. And I'm going to tell you a little bit how we have done it and what's happening in the world. So personal data, it's hugely valuable. It's all over us in different places. There is learning if we use some sort of learning platforms, they collect our data. They even know what kind of, if you use, for example, Coursera, this is this platform for online courses, they know exactly how fast we read, when we stop, at what time we do our homeworks, or if we don't do. Then there is the mobility data. If I use my mobile phone, it collects the location data all over the places. Energy consumption, now there is new big advancement that all the energy companies in Finland, they are putting the data together so that it would be easier to change from one energy company to another, but again, big data pool coming there. Public services, you mentioned that we cannot really choose whether we are citizens of Finland or not, or we can, but there are many public services that by law are forced to collect data on us. Then people do it, I do it. I have my, this Polar in my hand, so it collects my location data and my pulse and whatever, because I choose to do it. I even want to get that data. There is lots of health data in hospitals, you name it. The endless story of our digital footprint. And World Economic Forum has done lots of research on this topic, and they claim that personal data is becoming really a new asset class, valuable resource for the 21st century. Probably you have heard this, that data is like oil. I don't like that comparison much because there are many flaws on that, but probably the meaning is really that who is in power of data is really also in economical powerful situation. Boston Consulting Group estimated that the value of markets of identity and personal data related services may grow up to 1 trillion euros. 1000 miljardia in Finnish. It's hard to think, but that's quite big, although the Deutsche Bank is even bigger. Anyways, they say that, well, the question is then, will that 1 trillion euros happen or not? And if it happens, who will get the benefits? Who will get those trillion euros? And what happens to the privacy? And in the same report from Boston Consulting Group, they say that 2/3 of the potential value generation of identity and personal data related services is in risk, may not happen if the stakeholders fail to establish trusted flow of data. So trust is really must there. And at the moment, trust is really decreasing. We saw many of those statistics already in Eija's presentation. This is from Orange and Telecom from France, and they had asked that 78% of consumers say that it's hard to trust how what companies do with their data. And that's it. We know it. We don't like the situation, but still we go there. We choose to use Facebook voluntarily, even if we are not forced to. There is so strong benefits on the side of what we think that we get, and the benefits are very tangible. I can be in touch with my friends because I use Facebook and WhatsApp. Then there is this very intangible downside that somebody might do something bad on me, or somebody else gets the benefits, makes money on my data. So why should I care? That's the really problem. There is tangible benefits and intangible something bad may happen kind of thinking. So what is MyData? This is a current situation that most of the companies, government agencies, applications, they are exchanging data quite randomly. I have maybe 150 or 200 accounts in different services. I have a password list, so I know, and most of them I hardly ever use, but some of them are connected. So I have connected that my data from this place can flow to there, and I have given these permissions, but I don't remember what permissions I have given. Because I have too many accounts and too many permissions, there is no way for me to understand what's happening. So I'm there on the side. So then there is this, of course, if there is no infrastructure, it makes it hard for companies also to make good use of the data, because if somebody changes the interface, the API, how company has accessed my data, then the link is broken and they have to fix it and that sort of thing. So mainly for the organizational needs, there is happening centralization. So the bigger players, the data Goliaths, they create these kind of nicely interoperable systems that, okay, come to us, come to Google, come to Facebook, come to Apple, and everything starts working very seamlessly and smoothly for you. You only use our, you don't need to have 150 different passwords if you only use Facebook login for everywhere. Come here, it's easy, and everything works nicely. So this is now the battle that kind of this winner takes all approach that the big data Goliaths are aiming at. And we think, quite many other people think, that instead of putting organization in the center, what about if we as individuals are in the center? So we are actually the connection point that we can give permission that, okay, this data from here, let's say my loyalty card data can flow to here, application that helps me to do more ecological or better consumption choices. And in this way, let's say here is the retail. Where is the retail? There, the retail data would flow to an application here. So nowadays, the app developer should go and knock to the door of the big retail chain. Please, could we get access to customer data? We will keep it very safe and so forth. But now the application developer would ask from me, is it okay that I use this data, because then you get these benefits? And I do the negotiation, and the grocery store or retail, they doesn't even need to know about the app developer. So this way individuals would be the connecting point. Data from different, from one person can be connected with his own choice, and also the control point, so that I can decide who uses my data and when and for what purposes, and I can take also the permission away. There is a caveat though. People are not very fond of doing lots of micromanaging and controlling. And if you imagine that you have like this 1,000 lines of Unix read-write access rights, and you have to click everything that this can, this cannot. That's a caveat, but that's a challenge that can be overcome by design solutions that somebody mentioned this t-shirt idea, that you kind of predefine your own rules, but instead of printing it into your t-shirt, you put it into your own personal data management software. For example, you can say that I don't want any service that uses or sells my data further. So you predefine a rule, and the machine does the checking for you. And if there comes that, okay, this is this cool Facebook that you are now trying to take into use, this is against your own preferences, are you willing to make the change now, in this case for the preferences, or do you escape from Facebook? So that would make it easier for people to put their own rules. And the principles in MyData is that it's really human-centric, and that's very hard for companies to grasp the idea, the big idea of actually not putting us as a company in the center of the slides show, but putting the individual into the center. Because even if you speak about customers, if you speak about users, it's always customer of somebody and user of something. And that makes it that something or somebody is in the center and the customer or user is somewhere in the periphery. But putting individual in the center, it means that we as a company, we are only one small, tiny interaction point for this person. And then the usability of data. It comes back to this. So it doesn't help much if we have rights to have access to our data if it's not really usable. My own background is that I've been promoting open data for a long time. Personal data should not be open for everybody, but in the open data movement, they define that it needs to be in open formats so that it's usable by anybody, and that can be applied to personal data as well. And then open business environment. This means that now the companies are not very willing to open their APIs, or some are more than the others, but this really benefits for those companies that have huge data collection things. And that's important from the Finnish perspective, because if you think what are our big companies here in Finland, we have a couple of banks, we have a couple of telco operators, we have a couple of retail chains and so forth. Those are very small companies in the world scale. So all of the Finnish companies in the data economy, they are slaves of the big ones that come from the Silicon Valley. And if we don't change anything on that, they will be like, maybe not slaves, that's too hard word, but alihankkia, subcontractors or something like that. So MyData is a human-centered approach to personal data management and processing. I don't speak about ownership of data. That's really slippery slope. First of all, because data can be copied and who owns the copy and so forth, but also it kind of creates the thinking that only one person or body can own data. Like if I own this chair here, I can sell it or rent it or so forth, but there is only one chair and one owner. But in terms of data, for example, the loyalty card data, there is the retail chain, and retail chain can claim that they have invested millions to the loyalty card system and the data would not exist without them. And I can claim, I'm here, I'm the consumer, I'm using the card, loyalty card, so the data would not exist without me. But both of us, we have legitimate claims over the data, so we speak more eagerly with rights. So the company can have certain rights and I can have certain rights, and they are not exclusive. And these are what kind of rights there exist. First of all, I should have right to know that my personal data exists. That's really hard to get any benefits of my data if I don't know that it exists. Then to actually see the data, that's where, for example, the Finnish government is taking baby steps on the health data. There is this national Kanta system that you can go and see your data, but no, don't touch it, don't take it anywhere away from the system. So, and then there is, of course, in the law, there is the right to rectify some information is false. And that's quite important also nowadays because, for example, recruitment companies, I don't know how it's in Finland, but in States, they very, usually they collect or they buy data from data brokers, and it may be that your CV or job application never hands into any human person because it's automatically ranked based on other data that you have. If you are a programmer, there is something in GitHub, and that can be automatically assessed, and whether you will be taken to interview at all. So there should be right to rectify your personal information because it affects your life. But the problem is that in many cases you don't even know that it affects your life. Somebody made some kind of decision or profiling, and that affected something, whether you get loan or job or whatever. So then there is the right to know what for the data is used. And now the new EU data protection regulation that has made a little bit more explicit those rights. And now the orange background, that's where we come to the MyData. So it's right to obtain personal data and use it freely. And that's not yet, well, there is the Data Portability Act in the EU General Data Protection Regulation, but that may end up in some pile of paper if we don't really try to make it good. And then many people ask, why should the companies only sell the data? Why couldn't I share or sell my data to third parties? So that's also really crucial. I don't personally believe that I can get much of money out of my data directly, but I believe that I can get many benefits out of my data if I can direct it to somebody who makes good services for me, so I make this exchange more transparent. And then, of course, right to be forgotten so that I can delete my information. This is a big change. This is a really systemic change that cannot be done simply by snapping fingers. But there are other systemic changes that has happened before. So if you think about, ask from people in the 80s that would there be a future with everybody mobile phone in their pocket, that would be kind of weird, because then their mindset was that telephone is something you call a place, you don't call a person. But yeah, something happened and now you call person. And same was with the computers. There was the mainframes, and then came personal computers. And this is what we are living now, the traditional warehousing of personal data, so that it's held in companies and other organizations. But what about if the data would be more personal also, so that instead of, if somebody needs my data, he should come to me and not to go to Facebook. That's the kind of mind shift here. And other way thinking, now there is also always like the customer, and then there is the company, and in the company's back office systems there lays some data, and the company gives services based on that data, but that's kind of hidden from us, from the customers. So it could be also so that the data is actually a crucial part of the interaction between me and the company. Why, if I, for example, I just came from the US and I used Airbnb for booking my lodging there, and then I booked my flights from some other site and so forth. I gave the same information of me, first of all, who I am, where I'm going, what are the dates, and I need to repeat this all over the places because none of these could come to ask from me in digital sense, from my agent or personal data management system, that who are you and what are you going to do. So the data could be also in between peoples and companies, and then it wouldn't need to be repeated so many times. And now the data is really collected, managed, and used in one pipeline. For example, the banks, they collect all information on our transactions, and they keep it in their data stores, and they use it very well. Okay, they give me as a person once in a month a list of my transactions, probably in paper formats. How innovative is that? I could use the same data if it's not in the pipeline. I could give my transaction data to different services, get, for example, a personal finances dashboard that shows me where my money is going and flowing. And actually that's something that is now hitting the banks. There is new PSD2 directive, Payment Services Directive, Maksupalveludirektiivi 2. So that will force banks to open APIs, and banks are really scared about what will happen. Will they lose the touch point for their customers for some very agile startup companies that build nice interfaces? But I think that's the future in other areas as well. So we got the idea, but we were not alone. So there is lots of companies. I told you that we had like 700 people in this little workshop here in Helsinki. And this is quite new phenomenon. These companies, they don't, most of them knew that there are some others around. And there are, of course, networks of people, and other meetups has been. But really, the general feeling was that most people, they were surprised. Is this really so big so that you can get 700 people over to Helsinki? So there are startups and companies who, for example, do personal data storages. Then there are some organizations to set standards, technical standards. There is rethinking of the economical models. For example, the intention economy is a really good book on that. Then there are these kind of personal data aggregators that tend to work or aim to work more transparently than those Axioms and other companies that we don't even know the names, but who are doing millions of business by selling our data. And then there are, of course, these applications and that give the benefits for people. For example, this Mint is the financial dashboard application, mostly in US. And just for people who missed the conference a month ago, we have all the videos online. So there is like 100 hours of more talk if you get excited. Okay, no, wrong direction. So I will skip a little bit the technical parts. I give an overview of what we think, what we have done in our research project here in Finland. So there is big global phenomenon. Many people are thinking this. As I said in the very beginning, it's easy to grasp the big idea. That's how the world should be. Yes, let's say hooray, everybody. Hooray! Hooray! Okay, you are still sleeping. But anyways, how to get from here to there? From this current state of the world to the brighter future. That's the part where people are exploring the new ways. And the slide where I showed the huge amount of logos, everybody is trying some different paths from here to there. And it's really hard to say now which one will be the one, if any. But we have to reiterate quite fast what's happening. And this is the model that we are proposing from here in our research, so that we don't believe that every individual will run their own personal data management systems. Like you could run your own email server like Clinton did. But most people don't do that. Even if it's possible, most people rely on somebody giving that as a service for you. So we believe that this needed technical part where you give the permissions that, yes, my data from here can flow there. Where is the place that you give the permissions? We think that it should be possible to run it yourself. It should be open, standardized way. But probably most people will rely on some company or other organization to provide that tool for you. So that we call MyData operators. It's here. And in the very simple model, there is then the MyData source or the data source, for example, the loyalty card system. And then there is the what we call MyData sink. That might be a bad word, but the user of the data, the application, like the dashboard, for example. And in this model, from the operator, you give permissions. Consent is the word for permission in the legal jargon. So you give permissions for the data source. For example, loyalty card system. Yes, it is okay that you give my data to this company X here. And the company X, you give other permission. Yes, it is okay that you can use my data from the loyalty card system to this purpose of providing me the dashboard. So basically you give 2 consents from the operator, and there is a flow of data that doesn't need to go through the operator, because we don't want to, it might be practical to store some data in the operator, like what you need in many places, but it's not good to create one honeypot of everything in one place, and also it's impractical in terms of some data that changes very frequently. So this is the very basic model that we, one part adding to that. So the agreements, the orange arrows here, the consents, they should be in standard formats. Because now, whenever you agree, let's say you buy a new television, I just bought some half a year ago, the first thing what I needed to do when I put it on is that, yes, I agree to the terms of service. Woohoo. I didn't read the terms of service, but now my television is also spying on me. That's very nice. So in order for us to go over the, we don't have unlimited capacity to read all kind of terms of service. It's boring. That stuff should be handled by computer. And for computers to handle that for me, the terms of service need to be in standardized format. So here is an example. I don't know how many is familiar with Creative Commons licenses, but it used to be so that the license to use Creative Commons license is that if I do work, for example, write a book, I can license it under Creative Commons, and I can say that yes, anybody can use it, or you can use it, but you have to name me, or you can use it, but you only for non-profit purposes, or so forth. And that's simple model. You can combine this that can use with name, can use and have to share the results in same format. And that was huge amount of work to put in kind of same framework the old system when anybody could write all kind of licenses. It was basically that if I was a publisher, I wrote earlier my own terms that, okay, this and that can be done or not can be done, and basically what happened that nobody gave any rights because it was so hard to give some liberties without giving everything, and it was hard for the people to use the works because you would need to go through and read all the papers. So there was a work done, and now there is Creative Commons model that kind of standardized the terms. And this could be done also on the personal data side. Yeah, and then the question is, why on earth would any company want to open their data for me? Why would this loyalty card company want to that I can get my data, and probably if I'm using S group, I could take my data and run to K group? Why would they do that? So one of the most important incentive is that if they give data to me, I can give data back to them. Other data that they don't have access otherwise, because every company, if they are from one sector in this pie, they are serving me in certain cases, they know about those transactions that I have done with them, but they don't know anything about else what I do in the world. So if there comes this kind of data exchange, transparent data exchange model, then company can ask also, okay, would you like to get this service? Do you have this kind of data? Yes, and I can match it. And the other reason is that if, for example, the loyalty card company, that's the original source of very important data. If it's used in many places by different applications and services and organizations, the original source is still in the power of creating that data. And more data is used, more valuable the same data is. So then I would use my loyalty card more because I know that I get all kinds of good services based on that data. I will need to end now, I think, soon. So I skip what's happening in Finland. By the way, this I wanted to say, we had heard already about the new EU data protection regulation, and it's 262 pages. I recommend it reading for you tonight or something like that. Very nice package. But there is the Article 20, right to data portability. And now it says that the data subjects shall have the right to receive the personal data concerning him or her, which he or she has provided to a control in a structured, commonly used and machine-readable format. So this would be against the new regulation. But then the question is, which he or she has provided? What does that mean? If I use the mobile phone application that by being on collects some data on me, have I provided it? Have I provided these data points by using my mobile phone? That's probably something that we need to set in court. We don't know yet how it will be interpreted. So, MyData in Finland. This is not only academic practice. We did this white paper. It was commissioned by the ministry, and that ended up to be now in the hallitusohjelma, the government agenda, and it says that people's right to decide about and monitor their personal information will be enhanced. One small sentence, but that's quite good, and that's something that's not in many countries, and that gives kind of push for companies and other organizations to work on that. And from the government agenda, it went to one of the spearhead programs, Kärkihanke, that's run by the Ministry of Transportation and Communications, and there is it's about big data and MyData, and it pushes for the pilots, practical trials. And then there was the international conference, and okay, the alliance thing is old. It should be 40+ organizations, so we have I think, yeah, it's here. We have a company alliance with more than 40 companies, Finnish, big and small, that are meeting bi-monthly, hosted by the ministry, and it's open. If you are from company and dealing in this area, you can join. And this alliance is mainly for sharing information, keeping everybody updated in the landscape that is moving and advancing fast, but it's also to present and give feedback on MyData related pilots. And then there was also this MyData architecture. We have done the very simple model of having one MyData operator and sources and users. Well, it's easy to put on one slide, but if you are if you know anything about technology and have done that kind of specification, it's a little bit more complicated to put it in practice. We have done that work of specifying the operator model and also coded a reference implementation on that, which is open source and Python, and you can find it and run it if you wish. And now there is also, the companies are joining the act. There is Maankoodauskurssi, which is like maan puolustuskurssi, but different. So there are 6 companies that gave their workers 1 month of work per company to advance MyData operator model, and that is just now going. It should end this Friday. We see what will come out. And here are some research projects that made it possible for us to work on that topic. And this is my, I'm part of this bigger team, so waving hands here for you, but people behind me are doing the work. So we have mostly the business people here who are thinking about what it means for the organizations, and then there are the legal expertise on the middle layer, and a couple of technical people, more technical work is done in Tampere University and Oulu University in collaboration in projects. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. I was wondering what would Facebook and Google say for these slides. What do you think?
I was in a panel with this, who's the Finnish guy in Google? Sorry, I forgot the name. Anyways, Finnish representative, and he said, yeah, we are doing this. There is Google Get Out service. You can go there and download all your Google stuff. And I did it. I got 16.5 gigabytes, including all my emails from past 15 years and all my messages in services long died, like Orkut and Google and so forth. They are forced to play the game, of course, in the regulation that EU GDPR affects on them. And they want to say, yeah, this is what we do. That's how they would answer. Okay. But I don't know if they really do. I doubt something.
We'll see. Questions, comments to Antti?
Same silence as Eija got.
So what do you think, Antti, what will happen next? What will be the concrete step that every one of us in this lecture hall or in the internet, we will see in our daily lives? Will this change something in my life?
Yes, if it happens, it will change quite much, and it's kind of what usually is with technology. When it has not happened, it's like, oh yeah, well, sure it will go like that. Don't think so. It's impossible, too complicated. And when it happens, then it becomes commodity that, okay, of course we have mobile phones. We have had those already, like, what, 12 years? No, 20 years. So I believe that this is the direction. There are many arrows pointing to the same direction. But of course, there are also counter forces. And how fast it will happen, that's the bigger question, that if it will happen. There is really, what's driving now the current system is the advertisement money. And there is so many trends that this advertisement model is really, it's like a battle between people trying to escape of being spied and more spying technologies coming on the field. And that battle race is really expensive for companies to be in. And if there is any other chance to get to the same result, I mean, somebody can try to ask me, guess that, okay, you are 30-something guy with probably no kids and maybe trying to buy something. And now I was in San Francisco, so I will be San Francisco hotel advertisements for the next 3 weeks for sure, because somebody is trying to make that guesswork. But if I can provide the information to those parties that I want to deal with, it's easier for them. They don't need to spend so much in this kind of shady guesswork. So if there comes technologies, the companies will definitely benefit from that, and it might happen fast then.
Well, I have to ask you the final question, then we will stop. Because when you were showing us these papers, physical papers in the beginning, what would be your wild guess if you would get all your data which has been collected of you out of these physical papers? How many papers that would be?
I don't know. Max Schrems was the guy who did this exercise with Facebook quite famously. And he got, I think, was it like, I can't remember, but that was like thousands of pages, really. this tickpile. So
and just from Facebook?
That was just from Facebook. Of course, Facebook is one of the most aggressive data collectors, so you could maybe still fit it into this room, but the amount of data is growing very, very fast. So maybe next year you cannot fit it in this room anymore.
Okay. Thank you very much, Antti and Eija, and thank you, audience. Once again, excellent lectures, and we will continue with the same topic, big data, next week, same time, same place. Thank you.